So I'm Becky Walsh and this is the third in a series of films about corporate communication for wellness. Now, in-person communication is really important, but here's what happens sometimes, is there's that little kind of thing where somebody may want to bring down your value in order to raise their value. So in other words, quite often the people who are brilliant at their job and doing amazing things will find that they will draw negative attention to themselves. Sometimes from the people who just want to continue doing their work and reach their pension because they're close to pension age and they just want to keep going, tick a box, leave me alone, I'm not on a career ladder, just, you know. But they will feel my power is dwindling, so I'm going to steal power out of this man or woman who's young, got their life all ahead of them, and I'm going to be like meh. That can happen. It could be somebody who just doesn't really want to be doing very much work, and you're out there, powerhouse, and that person is just like, oh my god, they're making me look terrible, so they'll try and put you down. And it's a perception thing really, because you don't really ever really lower anyone else's value and your value goes up. It doesn't work like that. So when somebody's trying to lower your value, they might make little comments about what it is that you do. We've already talked about typos in the other film, but they might make little comments and things like that. So I think that when you are around those kinds of people, be very conscious about what's in it for them to be a git. So just be very conscious about where this information is coming from. So a couple of little things that you might consider is if somebody comes up to you and sort of says, oh, you know, I can't tell you who, but somebody's been talking about you. They're not very happy with what you've been doing, but I can't tell you who it is. But I'm just saying, as a friend, watch your back. Well, they're not a friend, they're a friend to me. And actually, if you want to create healing, you don't create gossip. So firstly, that person could have taken responsibility and said to that person, why don't you go and talk to her directly instead of talking to me? Which is a really good way of cutting out in-house gossip. Because that person's just going back in order to point score. They do it sometimes in order to create tribes. So everybody else is an enemy, but I'm your friend because I'm telling you this because I'm your friend. So everyone else is an enemy. So now you come with me because I'm your friend. And they're not a friend. Or they're doing it to go, you're alone, you're isolated, bring you down, and then I'm going to step up to the promotion, I'm going to step up to the next thing. So just be aware of those people. If they were to say to you, look, such and such has just got a bit of a beef with you, I think maybe you need to have a conversation. Yeah, great. That is actually helpful. But the rest of it is just, not good. Okay, so that can be a thing. Other ways in which people do this is they say things like, everyone is really angry with you. Everyone is really upset by you. Everybody has got this problem with you. No, they probably don't. But again, this is tribe forming. I and everyone else agrees with me. So this happened in a pub to me fairly recently, where we were having a racial conversation. And I was basically, I just think that this person was being quite racist. They don't consider themselves to be racist, but anyway. And this person said, but me and everyone in this pub believes blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, right then. Well, this isn't the right environment for me if you all feel like that. It's just nonsense. It's just the fact that this person was losing the argument because guess what? I was right. So losing the argument. And so I left the pub anyway and I won't be going back in there again. But it's this me and my tribe. And it's really interesting that people who do actually have racist opinions tend to tribe an awful lot, which kind of makes sense. I'm not saying that everybody that will go, I and everyone here has this problem with you is racist anyway, but it's how we bond into this group dynamic, because we all still have this terrible fear that we're going to be kicked out of the tribe and die in the cold. It's so ingrained in us that we have this real need to be liked and this real fear of shame and this real fear of not belonging. And when you have a staff member that plays on those little buttons that we all have, this is where emotional resilience comes in, because you've got to look at this and go, right, is this true? Is this real? Or is this an asshole? It's usually number 3, that if somebody's actually saying to you, oh, we all have a problem with you, it's usually the fact that they're triggering you to fear being abandoned, and they are trying to control your behaviour. So there'll be something that you're doing that they don't want you to do, or they'll want to raise their power dynamic above yours. Don't give in to that stuff. That's just ridiculous stuff. You don't need to be giving into that. So for you, I think that you don't want to play into those roles. So the other thing, use of language and words is really important, and I think that sometimes we use too big words for things. Like, you know, if Churchill had said, we will take them, we will go to the outer extremities of the United Kingdom and we will fight them where we may. What? Hey, what did you say? But, you know, we'll fight them on the beaches. Yeah, I got that. And so quite often in language, every corporate industry does this. We all have acronyms. We all have our own language and way of speaking. And everyone gets into this role of how everybody else speaks. But when you're a newcomer in a new job, it's like learning a foreign language. Not just the acronyms, but just exactly how people talk. It's like, and it doesn't take long. In fact, it takes 3 days, because the neurons on your brain take 3 days to wire. So if you were learning Spanish like for 3 days, or any language for 3 days, or submerged yourself within that language for 3 days, your brain eventually would get to a point where it starts picking it up really fast. If you've ever tried to learn a language, it's like, I can't get it, I can't get it, I can't get it, I can't get it, I'm dreaming in it. Amazing, like suddenly something wires in your brain. And that's exactly the same with learning a corporate language. So within about 3 days of being within an environment, you suddenly find that you're talking in the same acronyms, you're talking in the same kind of pattern of way of speaking. A good way of describing this is if you ever listen to sports commentators talking about football. Yeah, well, you know, it was one of those games where blah, 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 and I'm talking in a monotone voice and I'm talking about football as if I'm not really interested in it at all, despite the fact that, yes, oh my God, you scored a goal, will be the next thing you say. It's like when you talk to them in real life, they don't speak like that. But the minute they start talking about sport, or they're talking about sport together, they suddenly go into that voice. It's the weirdest thing, because it's a language thing. It's a way of communicating a tribal language, which is quite cool, I think. So when you are thinking about choice of words, try and avoid the use of the word but. Because whenever you say something like, oh, I could work late, but it's my anniversary tonight and I really want to be with my husband, you go, oh, well, that'll be great. So just doing a few extra hours. How did they not hear that? It's because from the word but, we just have deafness. So when you sort of get to that point where somebody's sort of, when you're talking, try and not use the word but. So if you were to say, I could work late tonight and it's my anniversary. Oh, okay, well, don't worry about it then. Or even the word yet. I could work late tonight, yet it's my anniversary. Oh, well, don't worry about it then. So try and avoid the use of the word but. Be very careful with those kinds of things. You can change it for and or yet. That is quite helpful. And always, if you're asked to do something, if you don't know that you can do it, say, I intend to do it. I intend to get around to that. I intend to do that. I'll try and do that for you. I intend to do that. The minute you make a promise, you are bound by your word. And your word is extremely important. Everyone's word is extremely important. Never break your word. Because one of the greatest things in a corporate environment that you can have is trust. And if you can be a trustworthy person that never breaks your word, you'll go far. Well, I hope that you managed to see the other 2 films. If you didn't, you can find them. So this was all about corporate communication for wellness. My name is Becky Walsh. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments. Don't be afraid to share. Don't be afraid to subscribe. And I look forward to speaking to you soon. Thanks a lot.